call the meeting to order tonight for the City of Saratoga Springs, Thursday, December 18th, 2025 at 6:05 p.m. Councilman Wilden was stuck in traffic, but we appreciate you making it. Roll call tonight, I have Councilman Wadman, Councilman Carn, Councilman Wilden, Councilwoman Barton, and Councilman McCombers joining us electronically this evening. Yes. I've asked Councilman Wadman to lead us in our prayer, and then Councilman Carn will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
Our Father in heaven, we truly are grateful that we can meet here as citizens of the city, of the state of Utah, and of this chosen country of the United States. We are grateful for the blessings we have and the freedoms we share. We thank you for those that serve the city and staff and in protecting us from the elements and from those that would do us harm. We are truly grateful for those that build the city and support its infrastructure. Dear Father, at this time, we ask you that we can be cordial and that as we go through the agenda that we'll be mindful of others and mindful of those things we say and the way we act, and that we can move this city in the right direction and be inspired by thee and thy Son, Jesus Christ. And we say these things in his name, amen.
Amen.
Please rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns for subject matters on the agenda or not. We do not have a public hearing tonight. Please be respectful in your comments. Please avoid repetitive comments. Total time will be limited to 15 minutes. Individual comments, 3 minutes each. Is anybody here for public input? Please state your name and address for the record. Yeah. Nope.
All right, there? Okay. Hi, my name's Caleb Buzzell. I live at 1487 South Stageview Court. This is not my first time expressing my concerns about this project. I've been astounded how much the city has bent over backwards to accommodate this development with special sessions and agendas that don't set time aside specifically for public comment on this project. So we have to use general comment time. Reviewing the prior meetings, has become clear to me that this is moving forward because of fear. Fear of what the state will put on the Sitla land if we don't approve, which again was reiterated to me tonight. Fear of the state and governor getting more involved. Fear of Eagle Mountain getting involved. Fear of being sued. All I've heard in every meeting is that we don't have a choice. Fear being a motivating factor is not a reason to approve a development. I watch the council and the Plan Commission regularly regretfully approve development and high density because of agreements made over 10 years ago. The Fox Hollow development that was approved last council meeting is a very good example of regretfully. The church land and DAP is another example. As I understand it, the DAP land still is allowed like another 11,000 more units, which is more than they can actually put on the remaining land. Larry H. Miller now wants to throw another 3,000 homes in the area. While they make the density sound attractive at 2.7 units per acre, a large portion of the land cannot be built on, so the actual build density is much higher. Our schools are all nearly double capacity. The new high school only normalized student numbers, not make room for more students. Our current neighborhoods will be turned into highways to get to this development. There are days I feel like a prisoner in my own home because of traffic, and my friends and family don't like visiting because of the traffic. This will not help traffic get any better. Any road improvements currently being done will be offset by the additional 6,000 additional cars this will bring to the area. Legally, the city cannot consider schools and traffic for a development plan. However, from what I can tell from Utah Code 10.2.804, property annexation is one of the few times that cities can consider factors such as traffic, infrastructure, and school impact before annexing property, and 10.2.805 even requires that cities evaluate and know the impacts to such services. This means that in theory, you can consider the impact to our schools and roads since the annexation and development are both here tonight before you. I watched the council lament having to allow Fox Hollow at the last meeting, and I find it incredulous that the same people are proponents of this project that add 10 times as many homes. I'm not opposed to this project in concept. I am opposed to this project in timing. I'm opposed to this project because of our already overtaxed infrastructure and resources. I realize nothing I say here tonight is going to change your minds. I'm not in construction, banking, or real estate, which is more than likely why I fail to see the benefit of this project. I can only hope that the city government is far wiser than me as they continue to move forward with this project out of fear, and that 10 years from now, some other council will not be lamenting your choices.
So I'm here representing a governmental agency, so I'm going to request an extension of my time if needed. My name is Julie King. I'm a resident of Saratoga Springs. I also serve as the president of the Alpine School District Board of Education and the Lake Mountain School District Board of Education. While I appreciate that the Larry H. Miller Company met with me in May, there's been no follow-up communication or continued conversation since that time. I am here tonight because I am deeply concerned about the impact the proposed Three Canyons development will have on student enrollment and school capacity in this area. Saratoga Springs already has the second highest number of students per address point in the region, second only to Eagle Mountain. Based on current data, we can reasonably anticipate approximately 0.864 students per housing unit. Applied to the proposed 2,966 units, this development alone would generate more than 2,500 students, enough to require at least 2 new elementary schools and to significantly impact our secondary schools. The submitted packet references the proximity of this development to the new high school currently under construction, which will be directly affected by this growth. Lake Mountain Middle School, which also serves this area, is already approaching capacity. Despite these realities, no plans for secondary school mitigation or support have been presented or discussed. The financial impact of this growth is substantial. A conservative estimate for constructing 1 elementary school today is $40 million, a cost that continues to rise each year. 2 elementary schools would represent at least an $80 million obligation for our new school district. If bonded, that equates to approximately $6.8 million annually for 20 years, costs borne entirely by our district taxpayers. To put that into perspective, each tax increment in our district generates approximately $1.1 million. Covering these costs would require up to 7 additional increments, increasing the average homeowner's property taxes by $200 per year on a $520,000 home. These figures reflect construction costs only and do not include additional expenses for transportation, operations, maintenance, or staffing. Given this impact, the school district is requesting that the Larry H. Miller Group donate 1 elementary school site and lock in pricing for the second site. While the district would still be responsible for construction and site mitigation, this request would meaningfully offset costs directly attributable to this development. We would also welcome continued dialogue with the company, including opportunities to partner with our Education Foundation to support the students and families affected by this growth. While infrastructure is being provided to support the city's needs, no comparable infrastructure is being offered to the school district. As a result, this development places a significant financial burden on all district taxpayers. We respectfully ask for your support in encouraging the Larry H. Miller Group to work collaboratively with the school district by donating land for 1 elementary school site, locking in price for the second, and working with our foundation. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Matt Isaacson, live here in Saratoga Springs and recently elected to the school board here in Lake Mountain. I feel like it's a 1-2 punch with Julie's comments, sorry about that. Really quick, she laid out the cost and the impact to the taxpayers for the funding of the new elementary schools. I really empathize with the position of the city in how needing to approve new developments like this one. I'm actually really excited for developments of this scale because of the master plan, all the thought and development that goes into making it great for the residents. I also ride with the local mountain bike team, and I know there's plans for some mountain bike trails and different things that really add value to our community. I know that a development of this scale requires a lot of infrastructure, and with a developer coming in and helping mitigate the cost of this infrastructure, that's a direct benefit to the city. There's also additional revenue and tax dollars generated both from sales tax and property tax that also benefits the city. What we don't see is a clear path, like Julie outlined, for funding the development of the new schools without raising taxes. So my ask today is to collaborate with the district. As a city, consider waiving impact fees for the construction of these 2 new school sites. knowing that the part of the infrastructure cost for the development that would sometimes come from the budget of the city is going to be largely offset by the development of the Larry H. Miller Group. And in that spirit of collaboration, we can work together to meet the educational needs of the students that are going to move into the area. Thank you.
Okay, is anybody else here for public input at this time? Seeing none, I will close the public input, and we will move on to business item 1, the Sitla Saratoga Springs annexation, 3 Canyons.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have before you 4 separate applications for the 3 Canyons development. That is for the annexation, community plan, master development agreement, and general plan amendment. The annexation will come first and have its own motion because the other items are contingent upon the annexation being approved, but otherwise we'll present all the items together. The request is for planned community zoning and the planned community general plan land use designation as well. To give you a brief overview of the project, the annexation area is 1,210 acres and the project area is 1,206 acres. Where that discrepancy is where Grandview Boulevard and Mountain View Corridor are already dedicated to the city, but still outside of city boundaries. So the annexation includes those road areas. The project proposes 2,950 residential units for a gross density of 2.4 units per acre and a net density, taking out all the undevelopable property and steep slopes, of 3.25 units per acre. This is commensurate with the surrounding development and is lower than some of the surrounding development in some cases where development agreements allow 4+ units per acre. They're also proposing 15 acres of commercial area and 523 acres of open space. It seems like quite a bit when you see 43%. It's a bit more than the 30% required for community plans. However, part of that is an attempt to preserve the hillside, and they are committed to programming a minimum of 152 acres of that property. It will likely be more than that. We'll determine at the village plan stage. Oh, here's a copy of the annexation plat. And this is the land use summary. So you can see the red areas are those commercial nodes that are in line with our community commercial areas in the general plan. The blue areas, I want to point out, we'll talk more about this in a moment, the churches and elementary school areas that have been identified as well. So the larger properties are each about 12 acres for elementary schools. The project is phased into 5 village plan areas, and construction is anticipated to begin from north to the south. Construction will also be limited by commitments to build Mountain View Corridor in the master development agreement. So going into Mountain View Corridor, that phasing ensures that the development can only construct units as long as they are building Mountain View Corridor out. So that commitment is to build Mountain View Corridor at 2 lanes wide, the city width, through Village Parkway, so from Lariat to Village. A lot of that is not on the applicant's property, so the city will work with them on making that happen as well. But the applicant has also committed to dedicating the full build-out right-of-way width for the future freeway width of Mountain View Corridor to UDOT. So in the future, no additional property should need to be acquired for the construction when UDOT does come down this way. So the phasing itself is limited to the Bonneville and Lot villages. So it's just that top square that you see. Here's the village phasing plan once again, just so you can see. So just Bonneville and Lot only. And they're limited to building 350 building permits prior to construction. So from approval to construction, going through the city process, being required to do village plan and getting that approved through the city council, going through plat approval, plat recordation, and building permit. Once you go through all those phases, they can do 350 building permits until construction. Once construction on Mountain View Corridor begins, they can do an additional 550 building permits between construction starting and construction ending. So beyond those units, those 900 units, they're not able to build any further, and we won't accept any additional land use applications further until the road is built. So, so ideally, we'll have Mountain View Corridor, according to the MDA, with an anticipated completion no later than December 31st of 2030. And this is in addition to the $2.1 billion in funding that you're aware of that UDOT has committed to this region already. Additionally, on the topic of roads and traffic, there is some information in here about the lot mine. So on this map, you can see that's the existing gravel pit lot mine that's just west of this property, outside of city boundaries. They added a note that they are willing to provide that information on additional truck routes at Village 1. We've expanded on that in our conditions of approval to require that a community plan amendment also be required, since it probably will affect beyond Village Plan 1, and that they also provide information specifically including designated truck route, impacts to city streets and pavement designs, making sure that the truck route can handle the truckloads, cleaning stations to prevent mud and debris from entering city streets, and storm drain systems, and that routing shall not go past schools. In relation to parking, I bring this up just because we have 5 conditions of approval related to parking. We're not too concerned about this because the applicant has agreed to follow city code on this, but the conditions are required to make sure that the proposal that you have in your packet gets amended to match city code. So just to summarize, as far as aprons go, and to refresh everybody, the picture here shows what a driveway apron is. So it's not a driveway, but it's kind of a small backup area so you don't hit somebody to add to your clear view area as you back up from your garage. We allow them at 5 feet deep in the code. They're proposing it at 4 feet max, so we're requiring it to be 5 feet to match the code. And then if you provide an apron in a townhome unit, the code requires 1 guest stall per unit, increased from the standard 0.25 stalls per unit. So we've required that in the conditions. And then on multifamily units, driveways also shall not count toward guest parking requirements and shall not count toward any parking requirements if it's less than 20 feet. So they're allowed to have, 18 feet driveways as we've done in other developments. It just won't count toward their requirements. Lastly, they were proposing 0.25 stalls for single-family units. There was a question there because they said on-street parking should count for this, and we never count on-street parking toward parking requirements. However, we also don't require single-family guest parking requirements, so we've just recommended that they strike that guest parking requirement. On the topic of schools, 37 acres, again, have been reserved in blue here, identified for churches and schools. The applicant has been working with the school district on those 2 elementary school sites. Again, the city has not been involved with, funding or those types of conversations, so that would be outside the city, but they have been at least in conversation and confirmed interest in those 2 12-acre elementary school sites. And they've also estimated, based on our population, how many church sites they would need, so it's at least 2 at this point in time. And additionally, we're assuming that the new high school is about 0.6 miles just north of the north part of this development, so that this would impact the high school. Once again, this is just a reminder that state code says a municipality may not, as a condition of land use application approval, require a person filing a land use application to obtain documentation regarding a school district's willingness, capacity, or ability to serve the development proposed in the land use application. Moving on to open space. So once again, 523 acres of open space are proposed. The amenities that they propose also follow the city's point system and more than double the minimum requirements of 3,933 points. In the image here, I just wanted to point out, though, they're in the submittal that you have in your packet, they were proposing over 9,000 points for additional acreage above the required 30%. However, in our code, we don't allow more than 25% of one item to 25% of required points to be one item. So they've actually provided updated numbers. And just for a visual here, that they provided that to staff, and that amounts to 6,068 amenity points. So they're still quite above the required minimum there. And there's also a condition of approval to note that open space and amenities may get ahead but never behind. So they have some language in there on sheet 401 that does need to be updated. So they'll work with staff to make sure that it just simply says that they can get ahead but never behind on both the recording and dedicating of open space and the amenities. As far as open space goes as well, and the council is aware, in your packets, we had a conservation easement section of the master development agreement, and I was made aware before this meeting that that has been updated to a mineral withdrawal rather than a conservation easement, just because of the legalities of what that may or may not entail. And that would go over the sensitive land and native mountainside areas. So I just wanted to point out on this map that that would be the pink, red, and blue, and the lightest green colors that you see on the west side of the development here. So pretty much just everything on the west side of the development up Lake Mountain. We have the language here for discussion if you need it once we're done with the presentation. There's also the issue of the planned community 20-foot buffer area requirement around the boundary. This is something that the code allows a waiver for, but the council has to issue a waiver. So it's not a variance, but it's just the council should look at whether it makes sense to have a 20-foot landscape buffer between certain uses. And if the applicant requests a waiver, that can be decided on by council. So this map was provided to staff after the packet went out, but the red areas are the areas that the applicant would like to request a waiver. So those are primarily the areas adjacent to Brixton Park in the north, and as well as the Israel Canyon parcels to the south. Everywhere else, they've committed to putting in the 20-foot landscape buffer. And this is something that we've allowed in the past in other planned community areas because if this was a standard residential subdivision, for example, we wouldn't require 20 feet between, 10,000 square foot homes and 10,000 square foot homes. So this is something that the council can decide on if this makes sense. On trail ownership, there is a condition of approval that the trails identified as public would need to be accepted as public by the city council. So condition of approval number 18 addresses that. However, one of the updated sheets that city staff just got a few days ago have been updated to identify all of the trail sections as public, and they no longer identify ownership. So I just want to make it clear that the options for council are you can accept all of these as public, you can deny them as public, or you can defer the decision on ownership and maintenance to village plan as we are for the rest of the open space in the development. And then my last slide here is just to note that we have a big condition of approval at the end that identifies a huge list of items that are deferred to the village plan level. These come mostly straight from the code. These are just code requirements that the applicant wanted more time to figure out with their layout and the details of their project, and that staff agreed that it made sense that we can still look at these items as requirements at village plan. So this condition would essentially be a checklist for us to add to village plan requirements for all the village plans. So they're not getting around it, it's just we're gonna look at it at the next step that will come to the council for approval. And with that, I'll turn this back over to the council.
Okay, does the applicant want to add anything? Or please come up to the hot seat for a minute if there's questions from the council. Looked like you were drawing short straws. Any questions from the council on this piece? We do have a state representative we'll have talk after this. Councilman.
I've got a couple questions. Do we know roughly excuse my voice, the cost of the corridor preservation that will not be a responsibility of our taxpayers? Do we have an estimate, maybe rough, on what that corridor preservation investment is?
If I could, I'll take a swing at that. Just a preliminary number that I heard, don't know how accurate it is somewhere in the tune of $50 to $55 million of corridor preservation.
Okay.
And I think the goal would be to preserve the corridor, the entire length of the city as part of that transaction.
That's from Pony to Redwood.
Actually, I believe it might also include from 73, anything south of
Okay.
where 73 is.
Is that
Quarry Ride.
captured in the development agreement? Full Mountain View corridor preservation?
The full Mountain View corridor preservation will be kind of a separate topic. The development agreement only requires the applicant to dedicate the full right-of-way on
Okay.
their particular property. And it does contain a clause that will work together in a partnership to try and acquire and preserve the rest of that corridor preservation. And some of which, it's just outside of the applicant's control. But, we certainly would appreciate any assistance they can give us as we work through that process. And we've had a good relationship and a good conversation about how we can partner with the preservation of this, for our community. This is one project, but we have need of Mountain View Corridor because of the totality of the impact of development across our community.
So I'm just trying to look at where the benefits are here. So $50 million in corridor preservation.
Correct.
And now this is rough numbers, but what is roughly the length and cost of new asphalt or new concrete to go from Lariat to Village Parkway?
Do you have something on that?
As it's currently drawn, I believe we were at 35 million.
Okay,
That's not a full,
I understand.
Mountain View
Swag.
corridor build out.
Yeah, no, that's the 3 lanes technically, carrying it down from where it is to Village Parkway.
For comparative purposes, the 2 mile of Mountain View Corridor that we built, which is roughly that same configuration from Pony to Lariat, I want to say it was in the tune, Jeremy, of about $20 million for the road construction for Mountain View Corridor. Yeah, so 16 or 17 for roadway. Now, that's across flat farmland.
Right.
As opposed to, we're going to be getting up into the foothills, and so there's going to be definitely some additional costs.
So we're looking at around 85 million in infrastructure investment.
At this point, that's what we're looking at.
Okay. Tippy, how do we define construction begins on that project? I mean, is that, if it's in design, are we saying it's started, or is it shovels in the ground construction begins?
So the
'Cause
conversation,
that moves us from 300 houses to another 500 houses when construction begins.
correct. So we had discussed commencement of construction, I believe, is the phrase that is used. And so, obviously, that sounds to me like shovels in ground and dirt being moved
I
and
know it
things of that
sounds
nature.
like it.
As far as
Is it defined
specificity,
in the development agreement, that word?
we did not define that, probably to the extent that you're probably hoping for. But I think as a matter of good faith, the completion date is really kind of that critical trigger, which is December of 2030. The anticipated
The
completion
key
date.
is you can't go past X homes
Correct.
until it's turned over.
Right.
900 homes?
900 homes is
900
the
homes,
cap.
caps at 900 homes until the roads, and that's corridor preservation dedicated road built,
Correct.
okay? I have a question, I guess for the applicant. In your application, when you state you are working with the school district, in my conversations with the school district, they haven't really talked to you since earlier this year. How are you working with them?
Yeah, I guess there were early conversations, and then also we used historical data on how many students will be in the area, how much land will need to be dedicated. That's basically next steps now, right? That's part of what we start to figure out in the details. We had to make sure that we got through entitlement and focused on the real goal right now before we kind of started to get too far out there. And so that's a note that I took while they were speaking, and it's something that we absolutely anticipate on doing, but it's just kind of a next step.
Okay, and I bring this up because, and I don't, by no means am I saying bad faith. What we've seen in the past is developers come in with school sites and the school district in their plans, and they sell homes saying, we have school sites, and the school district has zero plans to put a school there. And it's misleading to your customers that there's a school site, but but the school district controls that, right, unless you're gonna give them land. And so I just wanna, I guess, just say if you're working with the school district, let's make sure there's a really good working relationship there, that those sites you've identified are actually where they'd want them, or that they can afford them. You know, those are all, I would think, issues that go into a working relationship. So the word working gave me pause.
Yeah, and I think that's it's a point well taken, and I absolutely understand what you're saying.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of the power of this land plan and the approach that we're taking, is we have a little flexibility to go work
Sure.
those items out, but we wanted to make sure that at a minimum, we had the 2 sites at about 12 acres per elementary school set aside in the land plan, and that all the numbers and everything worked. And then we'll work on the details and
That could
work
shift
with
around with village plans, I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and we've already covered state code on this, but just I encourage you to work closely with them. And then my other question I wrote down, Tippy, was around the trails. I'm totally fine punting that towards village plans. I think that's appropriate. And I may have more come up, but I'm good for now, Jim.
Okay. Councilman Wilden?
Yeah, it's on. Is it on? There we go. One of the things, you know, it's not in the plan here, but I'd like us to consider is if there was a dedication of property to the school district, that we do help encourage that, would count it as programmed open space and assign some points to that. I know, like, we haven't done that in the past, but I think that's something that'd be worthwhile to consider to help encourage that.
Is that a village plan level? Or would that be an amendment to the community plan? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, maybe someone who works in the city full-time could answer that question for you, the best place. But that's something I'd like for us to consider, if it would help encourage that and, you know, make it more amenable for the taxpayers. Is that something that staff and you guys would consider?
So you're saying you feel like if the developer were to designate so many acres for space for the school, that there should be a reward in points, like
Yes.
open space points? Yeah, I think that'd be, you know, we did it just out of a planning strategy, but I think that it would certainly encourage people to do that. It's a great idea.
Yeah, for staff, it would have to be a code amendment, but where this is a planned community, if you made it a condition, then we could look at that, to how many points that should be.
And I'd want it, you know, I wouldn't be here when that's done, but I'd want it to count more than a slide or a swing sweat, you know, for sure. So, I mean, it needs to be worthwhile, and the reality is,
It needs to be win-win for everybody.
yeah, and it does become open space, maybe not during school hours, right? But like, you look at all the elementary schools, the open space after hours, it's heavily used by, you know, the community that's around there. So that's one thing that I would like to make part of a condition, as you're suggesting. As far as the trails, yeah, defer to village plan. The single family, the buffer zone, I mean, for me, I don't have a concern about that, as long as, I guess it kind of depends on what we're putting in that buffer, right? If we're putting high-rise condominiums, which I know you're not really proposing, but just using that as an example, I wouldn't be super comfortable with eliminating that buffer. So for me, like, if we approve that, which I'm comfortable with, but having parameters around what can go within that buffer zone.
Any other comments from the council?
Are we making comments just for 1 and 2 right now? Is this?
Yeah.
Okay. I actually love Stephen's ideas. Thank you. I never thought about that. That's a great idea. Just a couple of things too. Chris talked about like what are some good things, right, that from this. And a couple of things that I also wanted to point out is just that long 40 years, I guess, but a longer term protection from mining rights. I know that's like a big concern for people in that area and that kind of thing. But just I appreciate that. I know there things could have been a little bit different, but I think 40 years it gives us a really good buffer to be able, and then to be able to go back at at 39 years or whatever to make sure that we're also getting that extended. So I really appreciate that. And then no one's really brought it up too much, but I think it's actually a really big deal. But just the fire break that will be coming in with this development, right? I know it's a concern with residents in that area. It always has been, and as is warranted, right? So I also appreciated that part of it. And then just as Chris had pointed out, like it's a huge commitment and to our infrastructure. This is infrastructure, and I think Mark mentioned it with one of his comments that we need for our entire city. And so that's kind of a win for the broader area as well as our entire city. We need infrastructure, we need these roads, and that's really big, that amount that they could kind of discuss and try to come up with. And so I just wanted to kind of point out a few wins in there that I feel like that as a city we're going to really benefit from this development.
Okay. Any other comments?
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot about this. So I know.
I'm not sure if you can hear me all.
No.
Michael, are you there?
Yeah, let me know when I can give a comment. Can you guys hear me at all?
Just have them go
Okay.
ahead.
Yep, we're good. You can make one right now.
Okay, I can't really hear super clear. I mean, I know the topic pretty well, and I know what everyone's talking about roughly. I do like a lot of the ideas that were presented. I think Stephen's idea around the open space credit or the programming points, I think is great if they choose to, the school district chooses to go into the development. I don't think we should have that be a requirement that they participated because we're not the school board. But I don't know if somebody said that or not, so I apologize if I'm stating something that's obvious. But like using like a may, if they do work with the school district, they may get credit, blah, blah, blah. So something along those lines, just so that we're not making decisions for the school district as well. Because the school district might not want it to be open really to the public a huge amount. They might want it to be like the other schools. So that's all I have there. I also wanted just to point out that whenever I've done any kind of density product, I've always looked very closely at whether this is going to bring added value to the city. The Mountain View corridor with Wildflower and other developments, when we put that in, we were very clear. We didn't double dip. We didn't allow double dipping. I know we're not allowing it here, but that was such a huge benefit to the city. And in just a few days, that freeway is going to be opening up. And if this city council years ago, and really previous city council members who aren't even on the council anymore, hadn't had the foresight to make that decision and allow some of that density to come in where you want density next to big transit, and to have that freeway opening up in just a couple of days would never have happened. And I'm going to be as bold to say is the temple that everyone loves, that temple without Mountain View coming behind, that was a huge part of them choosing that location. Because there were other locations in the city that the prophet was looking at that was not ideal for us as a city, but we were able to show them, and we paid money ahead of time. We used our own coffers, and then we got reimbursed. So this, once again, is an amazing partnership when the developers and the cities work together, and we go to the legislature, we go to the governor's office, and we work together, and you can accomplish great things. We don't have to have an animosity relationship. We can have a symbiotic, good relationship where we work together and we make good policy for the state and for the region. One last thing is I'm really pleased with not just Mountain View Corridor, but all of the other major arterials and roads that are going to be coming through that development north-south. You've got Bonneville, road or shoreline, I'm not sure what they call that, but you have other roads, and then east and west as well. So this is going to really create some free up some bottlenecks that we have, allow for communities like Jacobs Ranch, who've been livid about all the people coming up through the neighborhood. Well, they won't have to, because you'll be able to come up different avenues, up the different boulevards along Redwood, and everyone doesn't have to come up just one. They'll have 4 or 5 options, and that's going to be a huge benefit and value to the city. So I'm sorry that I couldn't be there, but I appreciate you guys being accommodating to me. I'm very familiar with the project, and I just want to give a shout out to staff, to the developer, and to the city council for really doing their job, stepping up and getting it done, and really working hard to make this happen and solve the problems and concerns that council rightfully had, as well as the developer had, and Sitla, and all the landowner, all the different parties, and really worked well to get this to where we are today. I couldn't really hear the complaints or the concerns from the residents, and I apologize. I will go back and read the minutes and listen to the recording. It's just, that was the word. I could hear the council, but I could not hear the residents' concerns. But I have thought about this. I have pondered on this topic for months. And so my decision is going to be based on all of the information I've gathered over time, plus tonight. So thank you very much. Turn the time back over to you, Mayor.
Councilman Wildman?
More question for you, Mark. You know, Councilman Carn already talked about, you know, the cost of the road or whatnot. I think there's many in the city right now that would say we could use Mountain View Corridor right now. I mean, if we would have had it, I would have been on time tonight, right? But, you know, how much sooner, because of this agreement, will we get Mountain View Corridor? I know it's like a crystal ball, we could never really tell, but I think it's important that we understand how much sooner that we will get Mountain View Corridor because of this, that will benefit people that are dealing with what I dealt with this morning, or tonight.
It's a great question. I mean, 4 years, that's incredible. 4 years approximately from now is when we'll have that open and available to the public, is the goal. How much sooner? We're probably decade or more ahead of that, unless the council was going to fund that piece of the road, kind of like we did to Lariat. And again, we advanced the funding on that. It was MAG funded, so it made it into the MAG process. We were able to get corridor preservation with MAG, and so, you know, MAG and the Association of Government was able to help us get that. But we still put a lot of money out of pocket beyond what MAG gave us. And that was at the council's direction to try and get ahead of transportation. So to your question, probably at least a decade or more. And it's, you know, it's fortuitous that we have this opportunity.
So a decade sooner that will help existing people that are already here.
And I think it's, may I? I think it's important to note that this is net new incremental funding that's not on a MAG roadmap today. So that's why it's a decade early. The state EIS study will be completed in the next 30 days.
It should be by the end of this month.
Okay. And so having that state EIS study and a new section of this road installed will expedite the expansion of the Mountain View Corridor on MAG's timeline.
If I could, Tippy, could you go back to the MAG-funded projects? I think there's a tremendous amount of value here. So if you look, you can see that Mountain View Corridor, it's labeled with the purple and the number 4. That's scheduled to come together in about 2020. And then we've got the start of the freeway connection. I'm sorry, 29, sorry. And we've got the, I mean, obviously, the 20th, this Saturday, we've got Mountain View Corridor opening up to Bluffdale, which will be huge. Us getting this road completed down to Village Parkway by 2030 is coinciding with a lot of these other projects that are coming in. And so we are in a terrible pinch. We recognize that. We feel that. We all experience that. But with this funding and the state's enormous contribution for that, and with this opportunity, I believe this will coincide and tie in very well to this network of projects. When we look at project number 6, which is the freeway over to the to the I-15 corridor. That will be a freeway-to-freeway exchange, and this one is going to be opening in that same time period. So we've got a tremendous opportunity to see over the next 4 years some really amazing road enhancements for our area.
Yeah, I mean, this slide is great because it shows Eagle Mountain will be able to get on a freeway and go to I-15 without touching Saratoga Springs by the end of 2030?
I believe so, yeah.
Except they'll still have to stop here to shop. for
Yeah, we
ourselves.
still want them to shop here, yeah. So I just wanted to point out that a lot of these enhancements are fantastic for north-south travel. We still have serious issues with east-west travel.
Still
that-
working on those.
That we cannot address fiscally. And I'm glad that we have partners here from the state tonight. Maybe Jim, maybe that's time for that. But to continue to encourage partnership with the state to improve our east-west options.
Well, and to that point, Councilmember Carn, and I apologize for jumping in again, the Mid-Lake crossing of where the Mountain View corridor, ends down at Pelican Point, I mean, that is on the MAG's longer range plans, but this really provides that beltway on the west side of the valley between the lake and the Lake Mountains to provide that transit corridor. And so as we look at the longer term traffic, this really kind of helps to bridge the gap, if you would, of Utah Lake and provide that connectivity for the long-term vision of us being able to have more transit options instead of just the constriction there north of Utah Lake between there and the point of the mountain.
Can I say something real quick? I just want to give a big shout out to Councilmember Wilden because he was pretty instrumental on that phased approach to Mountain View corridor and the building and stuff like that. Like that was his main concern, and I think it was probably our biggest concern. And so thank you for pursuing and for getting that taken care of. And also, and I think everybody already said this, but a big shout out to staff. This has been a really hard one for us because it is a huge impact. But I think they've worked a gazillion million hours and lots of extra nights and stuff like that to make sure that we were comfortable with what was coming to us. I think we've all had a gazillion million questions for them and for the developers and for the state and for everybody kind of who's been involved. And I feel like everybody's gone above and beyond to make sure that we were comfortable with what was brought forward to us. So thank you so much, you've been instrumental as well. And just all of the staff for all the time you put in for this. And again, to the council members too for bringing up your concerns that were very valid and staff addressed those, and we're getting something again that I think is going to benefit our entire city.
Okay. We do have a representative from the state. Steve, if you'd like to come up. What was that? Do you have something else?
If I can, every
Sorry,
single
Steve.
person here has contributed a lot of time and effort and thoughts, and some of the conversations have been easy and some have been difficult, but look what we ended up with. I think you look at what we have now, and it's a quarry and a landfill and trespassing to get to the mountains. And look what we'll have when we're done, and I think that's really incredible. And everyone here deserves a tremendous amount of credit for that.
Thank you. We're ready for you now, sorry.
Yeah, I'm happy to tap dance in the hall all day long. Steve Waldrop, Senior Advisor to Governor Spencer Cox for Housing Strategy and Innovation. I'm here on behalf of the administration, and I just want to acknowledge what's already been said, which is the reason I'm here is because your city manager, your mayor, your council members, your staff asked really hard questions that needed work. And as a result of those hard questions, as a result of your legal counsel, everybody pitching in and saying, okay, what is the result going to be? We started looking at this not just as this development from the state standpoint, but I have a map here that your GIS has produced that shows all of the development in your community. You guys have been the tip of the spear for the growth in the state for the last decade. And it's brought change. And change is so hard. Change is so difficult to wrap your head around, especially change at the pace that you guys have dealt with it, and you've dealt with it incredibly well. And the reason we know you've dealt with it incredibly well is because people still want to come here. People want to be here. I just drove by a Costco. I mean, like, that's awesome, right? It's tough, but you're asking the right questions. You're pushing the right questions forward and getting answers that are meaningful and will have significant benefit, I think, for generations to come in your community. And we talked about that just recently. I'm looking at this map that shows, over 30,000 units, housing units that are going to come to this area over the next period of time. That's just a lot. And so we have to be wise about planning in a way that, frankly, we didn't do, that put us in this spot right now, right? I mean, now we're finally getting all these roads opening up, and I think there's a celebration on the new road coming, and we've got east-west now a little bit better, and all of those things. We want to avoid that in the future, and that's the result of the work that you've put in and led by your good city manager, Mr. Christensen, asking those hard questions and working with us on those hard questions. So having said all that, I want to highlight a couple of things, and my main job is housing. That's what I was hired to do. I was hired to make sure that our children and grandchildren have a choice, that they can choose to stay in Utah and live here and build the American dream here. And right now, that dream and that is at significant jeopardy in our state. And it's because we're a great state. We've done really, really well. People want to be here. But it's come at the cost of living going up, housing prices going up, needing more supply, more choices for housing. And this has been an area where that has been happening, again, for the last decade. And we anticipate that's going to continue. And so we want to make sure that as we go forward, that we're wise and judicious in planning for that growth. The antidote to fear is planning. And what's happening today, you've got a great development partner, you've got a great city staff, you've got a lot of great people working on the planning that is directly the antidote to the fear that comes with the uncertainty of growth. And we're tremendously aware of that and grateful for the work that's gone into that. One statistic that I want to share, and this is something that I share as often as I can. The median wealth for a renter in the United States of America in 2022 was $10,400. The median wealth for a homeowner in the United States of America in 2022 was $396,200. That's a massive difference in wealth creation. So when I look at a project like this where you're looking at about 3,000 new places for people to live, most of those are going to be people owning their homes, living in their homes. When I think about 30,000 coming forward, the value that this body will create by approving this agreement, not for developers, not for the state, not for any, but for the individuals that live and work and play and recreate here and build their lives here. In this project alone, you're talking about over $1 billion of value, of wealth that you're creating for people, for citizens of your city. That's incredible. How many opportunities do you have to create wealth in that fashion for people, for regular working people? So I'm incredibly grateful for the work that's gone into this. The governor's incredibly grateful, the speaker, the president. We've had everybody involved in this, UDOT, everyone. And so what I just want to address a couple of the concerns here and the questions that have come up. So UDOT, the governor's office, legislative leadership, we've met yesterday, and we're committed to the acceleration of the Mountain View corridor to match the progress of development in this community. There's a process that goes along with that. It's a legislative process, so no one has a magic wand they can just wave and make this happen, but everybody's committed to that acceleration. In the meantime, we are also, and we've had this discussion, corridor preservation funds are available. So we can start preserving those corridors today. And Mark, I think you're more aware of that than I am, of what those sources of funds are. I'm not going to try and delineate those funds, but those funds are available for corridor preservation, which again is critical to do sooner rather than later. once we know what that EIS looks like, that corridor preservation can happen. This is based on SITLA's commitment that is kind of new to they're going to contribute the right-of-way for the Mountain View Corridor extension. That's going to be in their agreement. That will happen in their next meetings. And then also the commitment by Larry Miller Companies to provide attainable housing for ownership for families and individuals that live and work in Saratoga Springs. And this will allow families to build generational wealth and put down strong roots in the community. Most of the things we care about relate back to stable families, stable ownership, and that is what we're creating here. You've got a great development partner. We have a tremendous amount of confidence in this development partner. From a state standpoint, we have a tremendous amount of confidence in city and city staff to work through this, tremendous amount of confidence in UDOT and their staff to deliver what we're talking about. And I think everybody, this is a fantastic, this is the example of everybody pitching in, sitting down and saying, what do we need to do to make the right things come about? And so I couldn't be more pleased to represent the governor and the state in this culminating event and just express my gratitude for the work that you guys do. I've been in the legislature. I know the joys of public service and the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune that often come along with it. But it's good work. It's necessary work. We need good people to stand up and do the right thing, and I'm grateful for your willingness to do that. And welcome the new mayor, and give our thanks to the outgoing mayor for their service in this incredible place where you've been dealing with some of the hardest challenges in our state and doing it extremely well. Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Mayor?
May I?
Yeah.
I'm gonna soapbox just for a second.
What?
I'm gonna soapbox just for a
Please
second.
do. I'm going to hop off mine and I'll give it to you.
Okay,
I'm
thank
going to
you.
beat you to my soapbox.
I just, I hope that in your conversations with our friends in the legislature who start in a few weeks, and with leadership, that this can go back as an example of what a partnership can be and not a presumption. I know that not all municipalities are bad actors when it comes to housing. And hopefully that this can go back and set an example at the state level, that cities are willing to be good partners, and we don't necessarily need our zoning and our ability to manage our own cities taken away to provide housing. So I think this can be a good example to the state and of how these partnerships can work. So I appreciate you being here.
Council member and mayor-elect, this is the example for how that works.
That's great.
I appreciate you coming down. I know when I talked to Mark to say, hey, would you please come down from the governor's office for this, because often you pointed out, slaying of outrageous money, before social media goes and say Chris Carnes in Larry H. Miller's back pocket. That is not the case.
Outrageous fortune, not
Outrageous.
outrageous. Well, it's Shakespeare. You gotta, you gotta go back a ways.
It's just to the point. Last year, from the numbers Mark gave us, roughly Saratoga Springs provided 9.5% of all houses in Utah for the housing thing. We're doing our part. The many sleepless nights from staff, myself, working on trying to figure out how do we get the infrastructure here, having the state partner with us. I appreciate you coming, because this isn't about one developer or one project. This is state-owned land, the state stepping in to help with the infrastructure so that we can meet the initiatives from the House, the Senate, and the governor for home ownership. So thank you for coming to share that information with us tonight. This is more than one project. This is a bigger vision for the state.
This is a regional solution to a problem that is regional, and so we appreciate your leadership on that. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no other.
Mayor?
Yep.
Can I just make a comment really quick? Remember, the one change we're making here in this development agreement tonight is replacing the language in section 3.1.9 to change it from the conservation easement to the mineral withdrawal
Well, this is
language.
the change right here, right?
And we also have, yeah, now it's up on the screen.
Okay.
If you have any questions about, so it's basically a mineral withdrawal for 40 years, limited withdrawal. If you have any questions about the state law that governs this, there's the Trust Land Administration attorneys here as well. But in your motion, if you can make that motion to replace that language with the language on the screen.
Oh, if there is no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion on item 1 first,
And one's just
the annexation.
I'll move that we approve business item number 1, Sitless Saratoga Springs annexation, Three Canyons, all those acres located at approximately Grandview Boulevard and Stillwater Drive, Larry H. Miller Real Estate, Brandon Ames as applicant, ordinance 2577 dated today.
I have a first from Councilwoman Barton, a second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion? Karn?
Aye.
Wadman?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Barton?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have business item 2. I will entertain a motion.
I move we approve business item 2 on the agenda, Three Canyons Community Plan, Master Development Agreement, and General Plan Amendment from Community Commercial, Low-Density Residential, Rural Residential, and Natural Open Space to Planned Community located approximately Mountain View Corridor and Grandview Boulevard to Stillwater Drive. As Brandon, our Larry H. Miller Real Estate Group as applicant, ordinance 2578 dated today.
And then add the different wording.
And the word changed from, where did we change
Conservation
it?
The
easement to,
changes to section 3.1.9.
Section of
And
3.19,
you can adopt the staff findings and conditions as well.
and adopt the staff findings and conditions as stated.
There are 2 that that have options to select from. Number
11 and 18.
11 and 18 need you to choose which option you're selecting.
Glad Lance took this one.
number
And the
11.
conditions on number 11. A waiver to the buffer requirement in 19.26.07.5 is granted by the city council. In number 18 condition, the city council shall accept public ownership of public identified community trails and proposed in sheet 5A02. Did I say that? Did I get all that right? Okay.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Wadman.
I'll second, and then I'm gonna make some proposed amendments.
I have a second, Councilman Wilden, with some further discussion.
So, Councilman Wadman, would you accept an amendment on number 18, where, condition 18, it says accept public ownership of public identified trails to say shall be deferred to the village plan? Hold on, don't. And then number 11, where it says a waiver to buffer requirements is granted by the city, I would suggest that we add in there as well something that around the type of buildings or whatnot that goes in that buffer can be determined at the village plan.
So made. Do you want me to restate that, or how do I
We got an amended first,
amend it first?
amended second. Nikki, do we have that?
So that second.
Changes.
All of the changes, yeah.
Okay,
I had more.
you got more? Okay.
Yes. One of the things is I'd like to include is a condition that to be determined at village plan that property that is donated to the school district may be accepted as programmed open space in the point system.
So would that be a condition 24,
That's,
yes,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
23.
23A.
23A? Okay, so.
That's one thing I would like to see there. But
Amended, accepted for
Public open space,
public open space. That item 23,
program
3A.
space, I guess.
program space, be accredited
it,
for future
school.
school.
You may need to
Public
try that
school.
again.
I think we want to clarify it's public schools, not
Yeah.
a charter.
I will, if I'll
Yeah,
state it,
good
and then
point.
you can decide. A condition that in the village plan, the city can accept donated property to the school district that will count towards public open space.
Accepted.
Okay.
Second.
Have a first, amended second. Any further discussion?
Sorry, I don't have
Okay.
another condition, but I do have one thing. I mean, what really, like, the reason why I'm voting the way I am is because we're expediting a road that we need now by 12 years, at least, at a minimum. I wasn't even interested in having this meeting at all and being here until we can really make a difference, that I could tell that we would make a difference, not just for the future. I know that's important. I'm not discounting that, but the people that are here right now. And we'll get roads off the traffic off the roads on a different area that will alleviate traffic, make it less than it is today on Redwood Road.
Councilmember, can you clarify, your intent is that if it's dedicated without additional compensation, then they get open space credit, but if the school district pays for it, then that's not intended to get credit? Can you clarify I want to make sure there's no misunderstanding of that.
I just want to leave it vague. No, if it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
If it's purchased, they don't get it. But if it is donated to the school district, or you could also like have it deeply discounted, whatever, something like that below market value. I don't know. Let's just say it's donated.
Yeah, you can't quantify deeply discounted.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
donated or not.
Yep, donated, they can get it. If it's purchased, it doesn't count towards open space.
Do we need to make any,
Can I,
And that's to the Lake Mountain School District, so it's
We need-
clarified what district.
Oh, very good, yeah.
so do we
Yeah,
need to
not a
amend?
charter
Do
school,
we need to amend that
school
terminology?
district.
in our open space, we have several different categories. A donation of land wouldn't have the same value as a completed park and so on. So I think it might be important to add some clarification on the value of that in terms of open space, since we have different values related to different types of open spaces.
Can that,
And it
can
can
that
be
be determined in a village
Yeah.
plan?
It could be
Yeah.
determined, so I think maybe we just add that clarification that the open space type or open space value of that donation is determined with the village
Will
plan,
be agreed upon at the village plan.
right?
All right.
Okay, so an amend, the open space will be decided upon value at the village plan build out or village plan?
Approval.
Approval, okay. Is that good? Okay, thanks.
Amended first.
It wasn't good, but I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion, comments, soapbox? Okay. Councilwoman Barton,
Aye.
McComber,
Aye.
Wadman,
Aye.
Carn,
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously, and we will close.
Go down in history as the biggest, longest motion in my tenure, 16 years.
Okay, we will adjourn the meeting. Yeah.
That's really.
Yeah.